Everybody, my name is Leo and I am back with another video, and in this video I'm going to be reviewing the Netflix anime High Score Girl. I want to give you guys a quick warning before I get into it that
this is my first review that I've ever done on anything,
and I wanted to get into doing anime reviews, so this may not be the best because it's my first. Hopefully I'll get better at this with time. If you have any critiques, you can let me know down in the comment section. But without any further ado, let's get into this review. So High School Girl originally... So High Score Girl, like a lot of animes, originally started off as a manga. It finally got an anime adaptation that ran from July 2018 to September 2018, and it was created by the JC staff. You may be familiar with some of their work, such as Food Wars, which is a very orgasmic and goofy ass anime. They've also made a lot of other animes that you may have heard of. So High Score Girl has 12 episodes in total, each named after round 1, round 2, round 3, etc. Each episode runs for about 25 minutes. I think one has 24, but the majority of them run for about 25 minutes each. So the show starts off in an arcade and we are introduced to the main characters, Akira and Haruo. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name. Actually, let me go look up this boy's name real quick. Okay, so it's
Haruo.
I'm gonna just say Haruo. So it starts off with us being introduced to Akira and Haruo at the arcade. And they're playing Street Fighter 3. Haruo is doing his regular business, sitting at the arcade playing games. Then he notices that this girl, Akira, is whooping ass at the arcade. Turns out this is his classmate and he would never have expected her to be in an arcade. He vows to beat her so that she can leave the arcade space. He challenges her to Street Fighter 3 and they're competing against each other. Keep in mind, she doesn't talk. It's kind of an indirect challenge. It seems like these machines are all like hooked up to like some type of server where they all have to play one another. Anyways, he starts to cheese her with all of these moves and spam attacks. He starts to lavish in the fact that he won only for her to get up and whoop the shit out of him. So let's do a rundown of these characters really quickly. So we have Akira Una, who is considered a perfect student as her classmates view her as, but her life isn't all, you know, crystal and diamond. In one scene, her family tutor is fussing her out about the fact that she's been skipping classes for the arcade, and she vows to make her summer a living educational hell because of that. But as the season goes on and as the episodes progress, we start to see a relationship, some sort of friendship, an indirect and unspoken friendship bloom between Akira and Haruo. Akira does not speak whatsoever. She just does like the ancestral caveman grunts, while Haruo is the one talking and assuming her feelings about certain things. Yes, I know I changed clothes. I had to change clothes because it was hot. I didn't want to wear that hat anymore and I wanted to wear something a little bit tighter. But anyways, back to what we were talking about. So Haruo and Akira go to the arcade. Haruo starts to play this spooky horror game and Akira gets kind of agitated by that because she's scared of things like ghosts and whatnot. They end up just going to play Street Fighter. These two kids walk up. Akira is playing them at Street Fighter and they end up losing. And so they try to pick an issue with her. Haruo stands up and he's like, you know, guys, lay off. These kids end up beating him up, and then Akira comes up and beats those kids up. And then Haruo grabs her hand and they run off. They end up getting caught in the rain and end up running into this woman's convenience store. And so while they're in the convenience store, she's like, you guys have to pay in order to stay in here from the rain. And if you don't,
I'm gonna kick you out.
So they both end up playing this arcade game and Akira starts. Akira, as she's playing it, is intentionally losing unbeknownst to Haruo because she wants to get a high score. He steps in to try to help her with the game so that she doesn't lose her last life. While he's helping her, he's messing up her opportunity to get a high score, so she ends up punching him in the face. Turns out she wanted to do that, as he assumes, because she likes the pressure of it being game over. They finish playing. She walks out the store because the rain clears up, and he sees that there's lollipops up there for 10 yen each, and he has 20 yen left. As he buys two, and he catches up with her, he's like, yeah, I got this for you. I got this for you just because you helped me when they were beating me up. He's like, pick which one, and she's like, He's like, okay, well, I guess you can have two then for being so good at that game as well as helping me. And then a chauffeur of hers pulls up and hits Haruo, and then like she gets into the car and leaves. But those were the main plot points of those episodes. Just so you know, I'm only going to go over the main plot points. I'm not going to hit every single detail that happens. On to the next episode. So in the beginning of the second episode, we start off with all the kids in the class in the pool. I think they're cleaning the pool or whatever. Haruo is talking to these two boys, and he's pretty much discussing this console, this new console that came out that he has at his home. Akira overhears this, and she kind of goes over to hear about it. She nods her head, telling him that she wants to continue to talk about it. Fast forward a little while into the episode, Haruo is at home in bed sick. He thinks his mother is going to come into the door, but it's actually Akira. She comes, his mother lets her in, and she has come because she has schoolwork that she was assigned to bring to him. His mother makes her some food and she ends up staying. While she's in there, Haruo figures that the reason why she's in there is because she wants to play that new game, and guess what? That is the reason. He ends up letting her play a few games. You can kind of see the relationship kind of building as they're getting more comfortable around each other. You can start to see a friendship kind of bloom. Fast forward a little bit into the episode, we have a scene where Akira is being chastised by her family tutor because she's been skipping her tutoring classes to play in the arcade. And she essentially vows that once the semester is out and summer's in, that she will make her education once again a living educational hell. And then we pan to a scene where Akira is looking into the distance because she kind of just got fussed out by her tutor. And in the next scene, we have Haruo, and he's on his bike, and he's saying that he's going to the legendary 10 yen arcade. While he's getting ready to pedal off, Akira jumps on the bike. And as they're going into the distance, Akira sees this fictitious picture of her family tutor. You can tell that as they're getting farther away, she's leaving her issues in the other town, right? As they're going to this one. After biking for a little while, they arrive in the town, and when they get there, they see the arcade. The arcade on the outside looks posh and polished and whatnot. Remember that. So when they go down to the arcade, there's no one there actually. They see a machine that has the first game of Street Fighter, and they both are playing it. And so when they leave, they walk up the stairs and go out to the exit. They see the bike, and Haruo realizes that he left his keys in the arcade. He's gonna turn around and go back in, and he sees that the gate for the arcade has been shut, and the building has turned into this dingy, blacked, grayed out building, and it says "for lease" on the building. And then this man walks up and he's like, yeah, that arcade's been closed since, 1985. And we're all wondering, like, they were just in there. How could it have been closed since 1985? And the man's like, yeah, it's been closed for a long time. And so they have to walk back home. As they're walking, Haruo makes the comment, it's like we almost got stuck in a different dimension. Now, when I heard this, I automatically started to think, well, maybe there's some sort of supernatural element to this, because I don't understand how they went into the arcade and then come back out for the whole outside to have changed, and then the gate somehow closed behind them and they didn't even notice it, and it's been closed since 87. I'm confused as to how that is. So maybe there will be a supernatural element in this thing. I don't know, but I'm not going to spoil it for you. After Haruo makes his comment about the dimension and being stuck in another world, Akira punches him in the chest because, she's scared of ghosts. She's scared of the supernatural elements and themes. As they walk back, they stop for a snack. As they're eating, Haruo realizes that Akira's feet have blisters on them. He offers to give her his shoes in order for her to perhaps walk back safely. Then with this gesture, I personally feel like this is starting to become a decent friendship. I mean, he went from hating her and she went from hating him to them being tolerant of each other's space and being okay with each other's presence. Obviously, we get to know more about what Haruo is feeling because we get to actually hear what he's thinking and feeling. Whereas with Akira, we just get to see her facial expressions and the way in which she grunts or moans at the moment. Haruo holds her shoes, but gives Akira his shoes to walk in. As they're walking, Akira's chauffeur pulls up and is wondering where she's been and was worried sick. In this moment, she kind of does something odd. She kind of gets closer to Haruo, almost like getting behind him. It's kind of almost showing she'd rather be with Haruo than to be with the family and to have to go back home. Then Haruo says, if you want to hang out, you can always find me and we can hang out. And then the episode concludes. Honestly, I feel like this episode did some really decent character building, and I really did enjoy this episode. I felt like there was a certain element, like the mystery behind the supernatural element is still like puzzling me, and I enjoy that. But I'm also liking the relationship between Haruo and Akira. On to the next episode. So in the beginning of episode 3, we start off with Akira playing in an arcade alone. A couple of seconds later, Haruo walks into the arcade and he's like, what are you playing? What you doing? And in this scene, there's something that's interesting to me. It's the look on Akira's face. This look isn't one of, mistrust or anger or annoyance. She looks, for the most part, somewhat happy in this scene, which is a new thing for her. And I think this is a little bit of that character building now, and we're seeing the progression of their relationship, because it's gone from one where she was annoyed with him at first to now she's very comfortable in his presence and maybe even enjoys his presence to a certain extent. So Haruo says that summer break is coming to a close soon, which is really interesting because just last episode, in episode 2, summer break was just starting, so that means there's been a big time jump. And from that, I personally can infer that they've obviously hung out a majority of that time, so maybe that's why Akira is a lot more comfortable around Haruo. And then Haruo reveals that him and Akira have both been invited by Doi, or Doi. By Doi, I think that's his name, let me check. His name is Doi. Doi is the guy with all the sparkles and shit around him. I'll post a picture, but he's the one with all the purple sparkles and stars around him. In the ending of this scene, Haruo asks Akira, are you going to be going to the botanical gardens with them? Because Doi invited all of them to come to close out the summer. Obviously, she's not going to speak back because that's not what this chick does. She just kind of looks out the door and looks into the distance, and then the screen just fades to white. I don't know if that's supposed to signify any type of special thing. On to the next scene. So in the next scene, we have arrived at the botanical gardens and the whole group is there. Haruo is late, of course, and Doi pretty much reveals that he has a crush on Akira. He reveals this internally and externally. He says something about a date to her, and then he talks about how he wants to get engaged to her and get to second and third base with her and stuff like that. You can obviously tell that there's going to be some sort of, at least for me, I feel like there's going to be some sort of competition between Haruo, if he catches feelings for Akira, and Doi. So when the kids go into the garden, they're walking around the garden and they're, obviously taking part and looking at the plants and whatnot. One of their fellow classmates says to Akira that it's unusual that she would even reply or attend such an, event. I think that just says a lot about her personality. She's, the girl that everyone wants to be and looks up to, but she's so private to herself that most people just assume that she's not going to be social with them. And I really like that quality about her, because she doesn't really have any friends like that if you think about it. Yeah, she's friends with Haruo, and that's a relatively recent occurrence, but for the most part, she's more of a mystery to these people than she is someone they actually know. And so Haruo looks over and he sees a Ferris wheel in the distance, and he suggests that they just go to the amusement park instead since it's so close. Everybody agrees, and Doi uses this moment to devise a plan where he can get closer to Akira by the thrills and the scariness of some of the roller coasters. So they go to the park and they decide to split into groups. Akira gets paired with Doi. Haruo gets paired with, I don't know what his name is, but I'm just gonna call him Pink Afro Guy because that's what he looks like. And this guy is weird as crap. He says to Haruo when we get into the gondola, let me see if your penis really has a bone in it. And I'm sitting here like, what the I don't understand this. This is a children's show. Well, not a children's show, but this is a relatively child-safe show, and for them to include that it had me hollering. I'm not gonna lie, it really did have me hollering. So Haruo runs away from the guy in the most comical way, and he hides in the bushes, only to reveal that he really only wanted to come to the amusement park to try out this arcade that's there. He goes to the arcade. When he gets to the arcade, he sees Akira there. Apparently, she snuck off the group as well. They just continue to play games and whatnot, and they're trying out these games all around the arcade. And then Haruo says that we need to regroup with the group because it's kind of getting late. And then Akira just grabs his shirt, and next thing you know, in the very next cut, they're standing in front of this machine that says Final Fight. And then Haruo's saying, we don't have any time for this, we need to go ahead and go. Akira makes it clear that she wants to stay and play this game with him, so that's what they do. So when they leave the arcade, it's now sunset and the majority of the group has left. Actually, everyone in the group has left except them. Akira wants to ride some rides, so they, ride some rides. The very last ride that she'd like to get on was the Ferris wheel. Haruo has this realization in his head that Akira wanted to ride the Ferris wheel. She just didn't want to ride it with Doi. She wanted to ride it with him. Sadly, they can't because it's closing time and they can't get on the ride. So they get on a bus or a train, I don't know which one. While they're in the vehicle, Akira falls asleep on Haruo's shoulder. This signifies to me a comfortableness that I don't believe that she had prior to this. So then the next scene, we have Haruo and he's just walking into school. You hear these rumors, these children, these other classmates talking about how Akira is moving, that she's going overseas because of her parents' situation. Haruo hears this. He goes into a sort of surprise type of stance and facial expression. When Haruo gets to class, he makes a note to himself and he's kind of confused as to why he's so surprised and why he's so shocked at this news. In class, the teacher reveals that Akira is going to be moving to Los Angeles.
Shout out to me.
I'm Vegas, so we about a good 3.5 hours away, so So apparently everyone in the class was supposed to get her an individual parting gift. I'm assuming this is something that people in Japan do as a sign of respect and love for people who are going to be moving away, stuff like that. Then we get down to Haruo, and turns out he did not have a gift. Honestly, the way that they did this scene, it made it seem as though the day that he found out that she was moving was the day that they had to give the gift. They didn't let us know that there was a couple of days of a time jump between the news and the parting gift. So it kind of felt like it just all happened at once. But actually, when he found out about the news, that was one day, and then her actually leaving the parting gift giving day was several days afterwards. So the teacher chastises him for not giving the gift. Fast forward a couple of seconds, Haruo's butler or chauffeur is outside and she waves goodbye and drives off. In the next scene, we have Haruo walking down the sidewalk, and he's letting us know that he had money for a gift. He knew that he could buy a gift because his mother gave him money, and he knew he had to get one, but he didn't know what to get her because she's such a very particular person that he doesn't know what she would want. So then he gets to the arcade and he's like, you know what, I don't even care about her anyways. I really personally don't care. I'm glad that she's gone because I have my domain, I have my arcade back to myself now, and I don't have to worry about her coming on my stomping grounds. You can tell this is a very false statement because the way that the camera's painting and the way that he's sounding, you can tell that he's kind of sad that she's gone. As he's playing the game, the characters in the game start talking to him. They tell him this is not the end of your guys' story, so you need to go talk to her and make sure everything's okay. He hears this realization that these video game characters are telling him. He buses his way to the airport. He gets there just in the nick of time and he sees Akira. He starts his conversation with her off with video games. He's talking about the new games that are going to be coming out soon. Then he shows her and gives her this pink ring he won in an arcade that they were at that she didn't realize that he had gotten. He said that he was going to gift it to his mother for Mother's Day, but instead decided to give it to her as a parting gift. And so when he explains this to her, she jumps into his arms and starts crying. This is the first time that we've actually heard her. Not a grunt, not a moan, but an actual vocal sound. It seems like some of her family members, I presume, when they grab her and they're telling her to come on while she's looking back at him and she's crying. They get on the plane and they leave. And Haruo is left by himself to reflect. He's just staring off as the plane leaves into the distance. Honestly, this episode was a lot deeper than I expected. I really did not expect this episode to really hit the feels in the way that it did. I was really glad to see that Akira let her walls down. I really was glad to see that because I see some good character development. And I'm also glad that Haruo was able to recognize his true feelings for Akira and that there may be more than friends. There may be more of a romantic connection there. Now, obviously, it's only the 3rd episode of the season. I doubt they're going to write her off that quick, so I'm pretty sure she's going to come back somehow. She's going to find her way to Japan somehow, some way. I doubt she's just going to disappear. I would like to say thank you for watching this 3-episode review. I plan to finish the rest of the season in 3-episode increments as well. It was really a lot of work putting this together. As you can see, I went through several days, several outfit changes, and this is my first video of me doing an actual review. So if you stayed to watch, I really do appreciate that. Be sure to like, subscribe, and comment with any critiques you have. I apologize that sometimes my speaking isn't that coherent and you can't understand it that well at times, but I'm trying to work on my enunciations of words. Thank you for hanging in there with me and thank you for watching. I'll talk to you guys in the next one. Leo Cyan out.